in the chat too. I know it's a Wednesday morning.
You said ahas?
Yeah, ahas.
I really had a lot of the people that were in the room. I think y'all.
Wendy says she's been trying to curb any limiting beliefs.
Good for you, girl. That is tough.
You can have results or reasons, Danielle Hinton.
Love that one. It's on my board behind me.
I've added some time to my calendar to kind of use Keller Williams' mission, visions, values, beliefs, and just kind of define what that means to me, right? So just a little bit every day, not taking it out as a whole project, but starting with one thing. Like, what does it mean to me to have a career worth having? What is that to me, right? And just defining that for myself. So that was a huge aha and something I took away. It's something that I'm working on.
One of my own was the E to P, because for so much in my career, I guess I didn't realize how I was in the entrepreneurial mindset. And I was hitting my own ceilings and not realizing that that was taking place and just getting deflated and deciding that that career, that role wasn't for me, rather than pushing myself and leaning into the uncomfortable, leaning into self-mastery. Which is something that I'm working more towards now. So it's very interesting, and hindsight is 2020. As you get older, the maturity and just like, oh man, I was kind of an idiot. But so that was definitely an aha. If Anna's listening, she's probably like, yeah, no kidding. But let's go ahead. Is there any more in the chat before? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and dive on in then. So self-organized here. I want to go through with you what our agenda is going to be for this session. So 3 things that we're really going to focus on today. We're going to talk about the 6 core competencies of a business. This should be the next slide, I believe.
You got it?
Oh, nope, next one. There we go. So the 6 core competencies of the business. We're going to talk about what it means to be a fiduciary, and not only the old CAR acronym, but what that truly means for you and your business. We're going to review the success system, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of our ahas. There is an application component to this particular session that, just given that we have so many people on Zoom, some people watching in different market centers, I'm gonna do like a call to action and ask you guys to take ownership of that. And I'll give you some direction, but it's something I'm gonna encourage you to look at doing before the next session. So we'll go ahead and dive right into the 6 core competencies.
Is that the next slide?
Yep. So has anyone heard the phrase, if it's meant to be, it's up to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in real estate, so if you didn't catch, session 2 is about embracing the job. When you enter into real estate, when you become a realtor, it is your business, which, like it or not, that means that a component of your business means that it is up to you. So these 6 competencies, it is up to you to figure it out. And even if you have the goal of becoming a team, you initially have to understand and be able to work these at a high level, and then maybe you leverage it off at another time. But you should always have a pulse on every area of these 6 competencies. So they're the lead generation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It is talking about your presentations to buyers and sellers. It's showing buyers and marketing to sellers, which is not the same as having a presentation. Write and negotiating contracts, coordinate the sale, so the transaction coordinating, and then managing the money. So we're going to dive into each one of these a little bit separately, and then know that as we go through Ignite, we're going to be diving into these quite a bit. So we have specific courses about just lead generating specifically to buyers, lead generating specifically to sellers, negotiating, doing the transaction coordinating. We dive deep into all of these, but we're going to do kind of an overview today. So does anyone remember from last session when we did the 80-20 principle? What's your 20%?
Lead generation.
Yes. So lead generation, a lot of times we forget that is more than just pounding the phones or actually reaching out to people. There's multiple steps to lead generating. So it's capturing the lead. And that means that you have to have a certain amount of information. Does anyone know what information you need to have in order for it to be considered a captured lead?
Phone
Their
number,
name, phone number, email.
email.
There's one other part.
Address.
Address, yes. And we're gonna get into that as well. So it's, if you didn't hear that on Zoom land, it's their full name, their phone number, their email address, and their home address. And then obviously any other information you're able to collect, right? I mean, are they single? Are they family? Do they have kids? Do they have 10 dogs that you need to accommodate? Things like that. The other thing too is there's a difference between a lead and a contact. A contact has given you permission to continue having conversations with them. And you actually physically ask them, do I have your permission to send you more information about houses that match what you're looking for? Is it okay if I stay in touch with you about other houses that are coming up in your neighborhood that might be good comps when you're ready to sell? You ask their permission to stay in contact with them. And then the last part is the actual converting to an appointment. So capturing a lead is wonderful to have all the information, but if you can't actually get them to the closing people, if you can't actually get them to something that's probable business, then what did you do? I'm not sure, has anyone attended any of Jeff Glover's sessions and trainings?
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyone on Zoom? Raise your hand if you have attended any of Jeff Glover's stuff. Nobody?
I'm gonna ask in chat.
Okay, so Jeff Glover, I sat in on an in-person training with Jeff Glover, and he's a very powerful speaker. If you haven't attended anything of his, I do highly recommend being in one of his sessions.
Danielle Hinton has.
Okay, awesome, Danielle. So one thing that he said that stuck with me is when he first started his career in real estate, he hated door knocking, absolutely despised it. And when he was in his first few days building up his database, he had the goal of having 3 appointments every single day. And if he didn't have his 3 appointments, he would go to his boss and his boss would say, you didn't have 3 appointments, what'd you do today? If you didn't have 3 appointments, then you need to go door knock and you need to go get those 3 appointments. So here's my question. If you haven't converted the lead, if you haven't gone on appointments, what did you do today? Because you're not getting business without an appointment. The lead is great. Having their information is great, but if you don't convert it into anything, then it's just a name in a database. So what questions do you have about this first competency about lead generation? And again, we are going to go over all these a little bit, but I want to make sure that if you have initial questions, and maybe you should write them down and then see if we answer them as we go along.
I'll make sure I always ask in chat too. just in case
Perfect.
they don't hear it.
Thank you. So the next competency then, and I think you can go on to, there's multiple slides
Okay.
in this. So next
Yeah.
one, there.
Okay.
So the next one is preparing.
There was a question, sorry. How do you leads? Is it legal to knock on doors?
I know, I need to ask Lori, there's been some ambiguity whether or not door
Yeah.
knocking is acceptable. Because in New York, they have the no cold calling policy.
So door knocking was always legal in New York until COVID, and then
Yes.
we were not permitted to do it, and then I don't know if that was ever. lifted since COVID,
Exactly.
Or if we're still not allowed to cold call and door knock.
We're not allowed to cold call still, that mandate is still in place, but
Okay.
I'm not sure if the door knocking is still part of that.
Chad said she got in trouble with that.
La, 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 la. But there are some scripts, and not that I'm looking for loopholes and trying to get anyone in trouble, but there are certain ways that you can still call people that you don't know. My volume is at the max and still,
I mean, I'll check.
oh, okay, thank you. What was I saying? Oh, there are some loopholes. There are some scripts that you can use to help you. So you can still talk to people that you don't maybe already know. Not that I'm looking to get in trouble, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, how to do it the right way. But don't take cold calling, like the cold calling mandate is, if I don't already know them, well, then I just can't talk to them, because that's not what it means. What they're trying to minimize is the solicitations that have been going out and all of the spamming. So that was a really great question. In terms of the different forms of lead generation, we do have a session. I'll have to see exactly what date it falls on. Stephen, maybe you can put that in the chat.
What was it?
The different lead generation tactics.
Okay.
We're gonna have a session completely on lead generation. Yes, Minnie, we can do care calls. Yes. So again, there's scripts to make your conversation from a cold call to a care call. And we'll talk about that in lead generation. But so if there's no other questions, the next step is the present to buyers and sellers and get agreements. Someone else still can't.
It was just Abraham.
Oh, just Abraham.
And the volume's all the way up. I can't make it going higher, so.
Do I need to speak louder?
Let me ask,
I mean,
people,
Can other people on Zoom hear me? I mean, there's some people engaging, so I'm thinking maybe.
yeah, the owl is tough because
Okay, Wendy can hear me.
Yeah,
Okay.
mine's good.
okay,
There must be something with this computer.
yeah, it might be your computer, Abraham.
Okay.
Cool.
So again, after you get the appointment is still not business. Then you go into an agreement. So this component is talking about getting to the actual agreements. That means buyer agency agreements, and that means exclusive rights to sell. And ultimately, what you're selling in these, are you selling the house? Are you selling the listing? What are you selling when you're asking for these agreements? When you're having these consultations?
Yourself?
Yourself, your
Your
service,
services.
yes. So that is something that you just need to make sure that you are outlining to them, is it's not about the buying. I mean, you want to talk about the buying process. You want to provide value added in terms of, hey, this is the steps we're going to go through, and this is things that you need to be cognizant of when we're preparing to list your house. But then you need to add the value added. Why should they choose you? Well, this is why you should work with me as your buyer representative, because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to help you find the right house based off of what you tell me that you're looking for. I'm going to work for you. On the listing side, you should list with me because these are my marketing tactics, my proven successful marketing tactics. I'm going to push out your homes on these various websites and get syndicated to all these various areas. Never assume that they know what your job is. Never assume that they know that once you put it in the MLS, it automatically syndicates to all these other websites. They don't know. It's not their job to know. It's your job to educate them. But you need to show, again, why you are above and beyond. I had an agent who once failed to say that he puts his listings in the MLS. He didn't get the listing because another agent said how they were going to put the property into the MLS. It's on you. So presenting to the seller, like I said, it's very similar. You just need to make sure that you are showing your value. And the expected outcome of both of these presentations, that your client, whether buyer or seller, will sign an exclusivity. I'm just curious, anyone who is participating via Zoom or in the room, do you guys do buyer agencies? You guys do?
Yes,
We do on our team.
yes.
Okay. Anyone on Zoom? Nope. Okay. Buyer agencies, and I would be very curious to hear you guys' experience in this. There's a lot of people who are reluctant to sign a buyer's agency. but it's usually because they don't understand. And again, this is where you go back to the educating. So tell me a little bit about your script, if you don't mind.
She's the best one, she does it.
So I basically tell all of our potential clients that we meet for the buyers that, you know, I have a document, it's our broker agency exclusive agreement, basically saying that you're agreeing to work with our team and our brokerage. However, you don't have to sign it, as per our broker. However, to work with us and our team, we do require that you sign it just so that we know you are exclusively working with us and not any other realtor. And I've never had anybody say no.
In the event that they do, we do give them the option to refer them to somebody else that does not require
Yes, and I also.
to stay within compliance, right?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's basically like, I'm committed to you, so I need to know that you're committed to me. That way we trust each other and we have a great partnership and we can help you reach your goals.
And I'm trying to think, because Christina, I signed one of those when I was working with you finding my rental. I don't believe there was a retainer fee. It was just,
No.
it was just a written, you know, I mean, I don't want to say a marriage contract because I'm not encouraging divorce, but essentially like a marriage contract, like, hey, I vow to work with you and you vow to be my agent. And
Yeah,
if we want a divorce, well, you know what? It's
Send
pretty
me an
common.
yeah,
Prenup.
Upset. Yeah, I mean, it says in there, like, if at any point you
You're
no
unhappy.
longer want to work with us, then
Yes, and
just
I
send
do-
us a written, just send us an email,
Yeah.
text message. I no
Yeah.
longer want to work.
We
with
have
you.
a question.
Great.
Yes.
Wendy asked, how soon before you spring the exclusive agreement on them? Or does that just vary from agent to agent?
I always bring out the agent agreement and also the other documents that we need for compliance right then and there at the buyer console.
Yes, so that is another question. If you are not doing buyer consultations, and a lot of people don't, they essentially assume that you have that loyalty of the buyer. And again, I strongly urge you not to assume, because they don't, I've so many times, I've heard people, they weren't able to attend an open house with their client went to an open house, the listing agent then helped them put together the contract, and they lost out. And it wasn't because the buyer was being malicious and didn't have any loyalty, they just, again, they didn't understand. But if you have the buyer exclusivity in place, then there is ways to protect you to make sure that you still get compensated even in that scenario.
Yeah, and I also do always tell them, you can go to open house, you don't have to have me there. However, when you sign in or the agent asks you, are you working with someone, just mention my name, that you're working with them.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Wendy, if you're doing buyer consultations, you absolutely should do it then. If you're not doing buyer consultations, you should. But the first time that you actually meet with them and you start showing them houses, you
I
absolutely should.
encourage a buyer consultation.
Yes, the buyer consultations are incredibly, again, you have to express your value, and that's what this whole competency is about, is expressing your value. In addition to just educating, it's showing your value, and anyone can show and open a door. The buyer consultation is taking that extra step. It's taking you from being a salesperson and the stereotypical real estate agent to a consultant, which is always the relationship that we encourage you to have. Any other questions before we move on to the third competency? I saw Minnie raised her hand. I'm not sure if that was in regards to the buyer agency. Absolutely, Wendy. Keep asking good questions.
Nothing yet.
Okay. So the next is talking about showing and marketing listings. So showing your buyers and marketing your listings. What do you think this means to you?
CNA?
Yeah, showing your buyers your houses and marketing your sellers listings, whether they be on social media, whether they be on the MLS, whether it be an open house.
Yeah.
And show your buyers could be in-person showings and also could be listing alerts.
Minnie raised her hand.
Minnie, do you want to unmute yourself or text?
Yes, hi everybody. I just wanted to share about the buyer's agency. I think that is so important Robin White teaches an excellence class. I've been using buyer's agency for years. I won't even take you out unless I know that I can work exclusively for you. I'll do a buyer's agency consultation on Zoom with the buyer, the husband, the wife, the mother, the father, whoever it is, the decision makers, and explain to them what I'm going to do with them and how I'm going to represent them. And also, you know how some of these listings you get paid 2%. You could also ask the buyer if they would pay the additional 1%, and all that is in writing. That contract is there to protect you. You're not an open buyer. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
I think we've all been burned,
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna get burned at times. You're gonna have clients who don't follow through. And even with the buyer's agency, it doesn't completely eliminate that you're going to protect yourself and you're gonna get paid no matter what, every single time. However, it does limit the likelihood that they're going to do a transaction without you. And for you to show up, for you to be your best self and your best agent and consultant, if you have in the back of your head constantly like, is this client actually loyal to me? Like if I am gone, if I go on vacation, heaven forbid, I want to take some time for myself. Can I fully trust that like they're not gonna just go and sign a
Exactly.
listing with someone else? Like if you don't have that in place, it's gonna be really hard for you to show up every single time and believe that you have their loyalty as well.
Another
Yeah,
question.
exactly, exactly. They'll say to you, oh, well, the other agent didn't do this and the other agent do that. Will you explain to them how you work exclusively for them and how you're gonna have their back? Everything is explained right there on that agency agreement. Explain about your representation.
Yeah, there was one other question, and
Yeah.
I think it was actually devil's advocate, which I love devil's
So,
advocate.
Chaya asked, but they don't want to limit themselves to one agent. How do you convince them?
Well,
I
my
won't do
question
it.
is why?
Give them your value.
Exactly, exactly.
Why don't you want to limit yourself to one agent? What do you think you are benefiting from working with 10 different agents or 5 different agents versus knowing that you get my full attention? Because if I sign this agreement with you, I'm tied to you too. It is on me to find you a house. So where's the value for you to work with a bunch of other people who also don't have loyalty to you? Did that? I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
yeah,
rush your
I mean,
answer.
I always start with a question, right? So, well, what's the benefit of working with more than one agent, right? Because it's about understanding what their motivation is and understanding what their thought process is. You can't overcome an objection without that understanding first, right? So, yes, is that an objection? Absolutely. What is the benefit to you of working with more than one agent?
One objection I hear on a regular basis, I'm gonna tell you, because of the relationship and the way that our market centers work in Keller Williams, we automatically combat that. I hear, well, what if you're unavailable? I don't wanna bother you if you are doing personal stuff with your family or you're on vacation. What if I wanna see a house and you're not available?
That's great. I have a team of other agents that I can connect you with.
I work in a network with 180 something other agents. You know, you want to see that house over in the New City area? Here, I actually have an agent who's able to help you. Let me give you her name. She'll be more than happy to get you into that house. That is the perk of being in Keller Williams. We are not each other's competitors. We are a family. Does that answer? I guess I'm curious, because it seems like you've had some experience with this. It was Chaya who answered. So Chaya, what are some of the objections that you're hearing, or are you getting objections? Chaya?
Yep, I'm just waiting for a response.
Okay. We're gonna keep moving on, but I'm very curious because this might be something worth a role play around.
I just have one question for you guys. When you guys get the buyer agreement signed, like upstate buyers agents, like on a regular from the listing agent get 3%. And I know down here, you guys are, buyer agents are more so getting like 2%.
Yeah,
2.5. So if you sign, like, is that the standard down here? If you get an agreement signed, are you putting 3% on an agreement and making up an additional 0.5% or 1% for the work you're doing?
For buyers or
For buyers, like if you have a buyer
For
sign an agreement.
buyers, there's nothing on the agreement besides if it were to be a for sale by owner, so I upfront tell them, seller pays my commission. In the event that we negotiate something where better terms, different
Mhm.
price, seller comes back and says, you have to pay my commission, I tell them it's 2%.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, see, our form of state must be different, because like we put in what's owed to us at the closing of whatever they buy.
Yeah,
So if we want 3%, like she was saying, then we get 2% on the listing.
it's 2%.
Okay, cool, thanks.
But there's also not a requirement either. I mean,
No.
you
Well,
could-
right, that's why I was just trying to figure out, because the standard up there as a buyer's agent is you're getting 3%, and if you're not, they get pissed off the listing agents, but most of the listing agents up there get 6%. So it's a
Yeah.
whole different thing. So I'm just trying to tune into what's happening here.
Yeah,
also.
know your market, know your value, because, and this is something that might be coming down the pipeline anyways, where the sellers and the listing agents no longer get to determine how much the buyer's agents are worth. The buyers, this is still coming down the pipelines, this is not anything that is enacted yet, but it may be a conversation, again, going back to the reason to having a buyer consultation, is that it may be coming down the pipeline where buyers are responsible for paying for their agents and the listing or the selling agents or seller's agent are paid by the lister. So it's completely separate. No longer is it a commission split between the listing and the buyers. It's completely separate parties and agreements. So if you're not having those buyer consultations, you're gonna be in a rude awakening, because you're gonna have to, otherwise you have no preset commission. And I would encourage you to start considering, how much am I worth? If I'm going out and I'm showing someone a dozen houses, what could I have done that was dollar producing versus not writing a contract for that person? And figure out what your time is worth and figure out what percentage you need to ask. So I would say in this market, we're seeing the 2.5.
Yes.
It is pretty standard in this area, but I'm not sure if you could hear Jacqueline in upstate. It's closer to like 3% for a buyer's
I wish
agent.
it was 3%.
Well, their
So-
prices
Well, it's all
are lower.
relative, like our average price point, not to get super off topic, but the average price point out there is 173.
Yeah.
So you're really looking at, like, what you guys make on 2%, we're making on 3%.
Yeah.
Most of the time, at least.
And where I came from, it was closer to 3%. Now, our average price point was also similar to, Cleveland, different market than New York, but we were closer to 3% as
Yeah.
well. So, and Abraham, I saw your question about role playing. Absolutely, we're gonna get to that in a little bit. So table that, but absolutely. So going on to the marketing, how do you, I'm curious. So you had talked about showing your buyers the properties that are on Zillow, that are on MLS. I hope you're using the MLS over Zillow, using your own agent websites on KW. How do you know which houses to send them? Where does it start?
Buyer consultation.
Buyer consultation. You need to know what it is they're
Ask
looking
them the right
for.
question,
Yeah, you have to know what they're looking for. Maybe they don't want to be in a ranch. Maybe they have that colonial thing going for them. Maybe they can't do stairs, so heaven forbid you give them a ranch, or you give them anything but a ranch. Maybe they don't want a lawn because they are not mowing the grass. You need to know these certain things. You need to have those conversations. So it starts there. You need to know what houses to show them. For the marketing, going back to someone mentioned the CMA when we first brought this up. Yeah, you need to know what the market is doing there. You need to see what your competition in that area, when they list their houses, where are they putting it out? Where are they getting traction? You want to know those things so you can better show up for your clients. So if we go on to 4,
Yeah.
awesome. Writing and negotiating contracts. Again, we're gonna have a separate session on just this. But this is something that I find a lot of times, especially newer agents, they're very worried about. They are incredibly nervous about putting the right information in the right place. What if I screw it up? And again, we have resources for you on all of this. There is Lori with compliance. If you're in the PC programs, I highly encourage you to utilize them. That's what you're paying them for. And there's also myself and the other team leaders. Pretty much And your other fellow agents.
Yeah, I was gonna say the ALC, any agent, right? Like,
Yeah.
If anybody called me and said, I don't know how to write it, I'd be happy to walk them through it.
Exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
You know,
Yes, so I mean, it's definitely, it's utilizing your resources. Don't allow yourself to be siloed. Don't get it in your head that you're on an island, because here you're not. You have the opportunities and you have the resources. So we have a whole nother section on this. I'm not gonna dive into it too deeply. Fifth is coordinating the transactions. So it's not over till the fat lady sings. It's a common phrase. People in real estate, you don't get a dime until it closes. And as we know, there's a lot of people with their hands in the cookie jar. There's only so much you control, but there's lots of conversations and ways that you can help maneuver the ship so you get to your destination. And we're gonna have various sessions on the closing process. What we would always tell our clients, because I will tell you in our consultations on the buyer side especially, one of the biggest objections we would get for the, well, I'm not signing a buyer exclusivity agreement. All you're doing is let me into a house. Why should I agree to pay you 2.5%? I can find anyone, they'll knock the door for me. Well, that's great. Can you negotiate with the other people? Are you comfortable talking with, various inspectors to find out who's gonna be the best one for your purposes? Like, what are you capable to do? What is your qualifications that you can do all of the behind the scenes stuff? Do you have the time? What's your schedule look like? Do you have infinite amount of time to be calling all these people to make sure that all the processes are taking place in the order in which they need to happen so it closes on time? These are the things they don't necessarily think about. Again, going back to the buyer consultation and educating them and the fact that there's a process. It's not as simple as I open you a door. Help them learn. So we're gonna have sessions about all this, but we used to tell our clients all the time, I don't get paid for helping you go under contract. I get paid for closing. I get paid to close you on your house and get you your house, your keys.
and also utilize the technology that we have, right? Like through Command, you can actually send notifications to your clients when you check things off of your checklist. So if you say, oh, okay, title came in, you can check it and it sends them an email that says, great news, your title came in, right? Like it doesn't need to be difficult. Use the technology to make it easy.
It makes you look like a rock star. Be the rock star. Let them know how amazing you are. Reinforce your value. Throughout the entire process, reinforce your value. That's how you also get referrals after the fact. All right, so, and then the last one is managing the money. I'm not gonna dive into this one a whole lot right now because we have another component into it. But as you know, we don't get paid once we go under contract. So you have to know your finances. You need to be very smart in what you're investing in. Is it worth your investment? Know your ROI, etc. So that way you're not living paycheck to paycheck. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about this later and the importance of it. But it all boils down to mindset, embracing your job. Some of you were in here for the PC coaching when Brian Kaplicki was in here. I took a little video and put it on my story where he talks about leaning into the uncomfortable. Not everything about being a real estate agent is fun. Not everything about being a real estate agent is easy. It's going to push you. There's going to be some things that you need to do, like perhaps lead generating, that you're not excited about, but you have to do it. And the more you lean into it, the better you're going to get. But it's a mindset. It's a mindset every single day to go that E to P, to remove those limiting beliefs of, oh, well, a buyer doesn't want a buyer's agency. You didn't explain it to them. You didn't explain the value to them. So I want you to think about some of the other conversations that came up with Anna in our last session about all of that. And I had this epiphany while I was going through this material last night, is you have to come at your job from a place of service. So can anyone, we've already kind of mentioned some of the 6 perspectives that Anna touched from last session, but out of curiosity, can anyone list or start sharing with me some of the different perspectives that we talked about
We do have
last
a
time?
comment when you're ready.
Oh.
We have a raised hand.
Okay. What was the
I think
reason?
it's DeJeanette.
It's me. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
some-
Okay. Yes, I just have a question. Just going back to buyer agent representation. If you're working with someone who is looking to purchase brand new construction and the contractor is trying to convince them that they don't need a buyer to rep or buyer's agent, how would you explain to them that it's probably in their best interest to have someone on their side when going through a new build?
Great question. I actually, after this question, I'm going to kind of share a story that I think answers that for you.
Okay, great.
6 perspectives. Do you guys remember them from Anna and her session last week? What were they? I know some of you Zoom folks are being kind of quiet. But I know I saw a lot of names on there that were here on Monday. Don't make me start picking on you.
Commit to self-mastery. Commit to the 80-20 principle, move from E to P, making, being, learning based the foundation of your action plan, removing your limited beliefs and be accountable.
Yes. So it's important to keep that programmed into, yes, purpose, Sakia, yes. Program to success and ultimately is believing in yourself. It's that confidence, and confidence does not come over time. It comes from dusting yourself off after and licking your wounds. You're gonna fail at times. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to make mistakes, and that's what we're all here for. And it's okay to make mistakes. But learn from them. That's where the confidence comes from. And ultimately realize that that's where the value comes from. Is it's your experience, it's your expertise because of the various experiences that you've had, mistakes you've made, and what you've learned from. That's all part of who you are. And it's important. And the most important thing to think about when we're doing these buyer consultations, when we're talking about the showing and the marketing of the listing, yes, it's knowing your proposition, but you're coming from a place of service. So the epiphany I had when I was going through all this material is prior to being team leader, prior to actually even entering real estate, I had multiple sales position jobs. Everything from selling products to selling services. And going back to kind of your question, I think that was DeJeanette who had that question. I hated the metrics. I hated the metrics because I always felt confined. I was always a people-oriented person. I wanted to pour into the people I was speaking to on the phones. And yet I was being told, no, you need to hurry up and get on to the next call. You need to do the next thing. You need to focus. It's not about them. And you want to know why? It's because who was paying me was not who I was servicing. Where my paycheck was coming from was not from the people I was talking to. When I was a headhunter, when I was recruiting, I was hired by the companies. They didn't care if I had a relationship with the people who just recently lost their job and they had 5 mouths to feed and their resume was crap and they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't care how much time I spent with them. All they wanted me to do was to find them a good candidate. All my employer cared about was for me to find a good candidate. But I wanted to help those people. In real estate, and for your individuals who are looking at new construction, all you want to do is help those people. They're going to pay you because you want to help them. That builder is not dedicated to them. He's dedicated to building a house. And that's what I want you to realize is you are in a place of service. You are a servant leader. You are a consultant. And you need to look at yourself as such and realize that not all agents are created equal. Not all other sales individuals are going to see it that way. But at Keller Williams, that's what we wholeheartedly encourage you to see yourself as a consultant and someone who is here to serve. Does that answer your question on how I would face that objection?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure I don't forget anything as I go on my little tangents about life. So we already kind of talked about this, making sure that you're educating the people, but people don't just want to hear about your real estate. They want to know who you are as a person. You've probably heard that phrase that people don't do business with people they don't like, or that people do business with people that they like. So the social media and the going out to community events and getting involved, it's purposeful. It's so that they get to know who you are, and so they can see who you are outside of just a business person. That rapport, that trust is built on a deeper level than just someone who shows up and gives them a listing packet. What's up, Jack?
Just to kind of bounce off that, I heard a saying sometime last year, and it was basically along the same lines, but it was worded, people don't like being sold, they like shopping with friends.
Right? Yes.
So that's kind of the one I've taken. And like even just before when we were all sitting in here and I've gone out for my phone call, it's a listing. Danielle was talking about how she's been working on a listing client for months and months. It's a listing client been working on for months and months. And now he, his timeline is changing again, but he said, I just want you to know there's realtors coming left and right, but I'm shooing all of them away. And I said, listen, we're just here to help. And he was like, well, that's why I'm shooing everybody else away except for you guys. So, it's a game changer, like you said, when you do come from a place of service and not for the sale.
Yes. And people can tell when you're not being genuine.
Yeah.
People can tell when you're fake. I hate to say it. We're not that dumb. We can see through it. All right. So, and maybe we don't see it at first, but it's not going to take long for the real you to show. You're going to show your true colors eventually. So get your heart and your mind right and come from a place of service. You're going to do so much better. Your referral and your repeat business is going to be so much better and so much stronger because of how you approach your business today. So let's talk about some realities. This is always fun. Let's talk about some realities of being a realtor. How long does it take for a buyer or seller to actually sign a contract with you?
Like the agreement.
Yes. How long? You get a lead, they just come in, you're nurturing. How long does it take until you get to agreement on average?
Like a week.
Girl, you good.
From by the time I get the lead, if I'm calling them and they're an A buyer, I'm sitting down to appointment either that week or the following week, and I have 95% on average, Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, for them signing the contract.
Yeah, so from appointment to.
Not
contract.
appointment, lead. First come in.
Right, so from
Yeah.
lead to appointment, I don't know that conversion rate. I only know your conversion rate for.
I would say a week or two.
And you're right. There are going to be some people who are like, I'm ready to go now. Like,
Yeah.
get on my level. Let's go. We're hitting
I
houses later
only
this
have
afternoon.
I only have my A buyer sign my agreements. If I meet with a B buyer or C buyer, I meet them for a buyer consult, but I won't have them sign the agreement. Cause it's just a waste. Why? So that you can track it on your numbers to have an agreement? I think that's stupid. No. You should have them sign it when they're ready.
You just need to make sure that you're diligent and following up with them so you don't lose them in the meantime. They don't fall through the cracks.
We follow
Yeah.
up them every week. We call them every week. We have our transaction coordinator sends us a list. We call them every week.
Julie, do you know roughly how long it takes?
I'm gonna guess 60 days.
It's between 1 and 60 days, depending on their motivation, on average. And it also depends on your lead generation tactics and things like that. You'll find that some sources, it might take a little bit longer to convert them into probable business, which is what we would call an agreement. And I believe Keller Williams had done a study that shows that it takes roughly 18 touches. So touches being contacts, takes roughly 18 times contacting them in some way, shape, or form before it converts to the next level. So that's a reality that you need to embrace and that you have to know as you're doing your lead generation when you're planning out, okay, how long until I get paid? Okay, so how long on average does it take for a transaction to close? You go under contract, how long does it typically take?
45 days.
45 days, I've heard up to 3 months. So,
Yeah, ours is
And
always
anywhere
from
in between.
45 to
And-
60 days.
And
I've also had closings that have closed in 14 days too. So
Yeah.
really-
we're in a little bit of a weird market where, you know, the cash deals makes it a little bit interesting. Things can close a little bit earlier with the cash deal, and that wasn't nearly as common pre-COVID.
I've done the most cash deals this year than I have in any other year.
yeah, I got lenders yelling at me, talking about you're not sending me clients, like,
Yeah.
joking me, and I'm like, I
Sorry.
legit have cash buyers.
I have people coming out of the woodworks for cash.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
But on average, know that in our market, it's gonna usually, because again, we have realtors involved, or not realtors, real estate attorneys rather involved. Our turnaround time for a transaction is a lot longer in New York, in this area, than it is in other parts of the nation.
It also depends on the attorney. I get asked that all the time at a buyer consult. How long is it gonna take from start to finish? Probably 45 to 60 days after we have an accepted offer by the time you send your contract. Also really depends on who your attorney is.
And your relationship with them and my relationship with them, and
That's why I like to use Bruce Dunn a lot. I'll fill
Nice
Bruce's
change.
bucket. He's fast.
Bruce, if you're on here, you should send her coffee.
You're welcome. I'm closing with him on Friday.
But no, and then how long after the deal closes do you get paid?
The next day.
Typically, as long as you have all your stuff.
We
in
always get
compliance.
paid the next day because we're very compliant.
So here's another,
Sure.
here's another thing to be cognizant of. Before we can pay you as a brokerage, we need to make sure that we have all of the documents required for compliance in your file and
I make
submitted.
sure of that.
So, I mean, if you struggle with compliance and you're also struggling with making sure that you're getting paid and that you have money in the bank, you should probably set up a meeting with Lori Burns, our compliance coordinator, our director of compliance. And let's help you make sure that you get paid on time. But these are some of the realities of real estate in our market, that when you are doing your transactions and when you're preparing your business, figuring out how much you need to lead generate, how many appointments you need to go on, all of this plays a factor. You need to know, okay, so my goal is to close 10 transactions in the remainder of this year. Great. So how many appointments do I need to go on based off of the conversion? And when do I need to have that done by? Because it's gonna take roughly somewhere between 1 to 60 days, depending on how motivated they are, like Christina mentioned. And then it's gonna take another 3 months for it to close. Shoot, what you're working on now, you better get it under contract here very quickly, otherwise I ain't closing in Q4.
No,
It's gonna be a Q1.
it should be under contract by October 1st.
Yes, otherwise it's not closing this year. So those are just some realities that you need to be very honest with yourself and embrace that part of our business. Does anyone remember this quote from Monday? Anyone can do it, but not everyone will. These 6 competencies, I hate to say it, even though you're on here and you've got all these different trainers who are gonna be preaching to you about like, hey, do this, do this. It's the right thing to do. It's gonna help you accelerate your business. It's gonna ignite you. Are all of you gonna do it? My coach, she put me on blast yesterday, my maths coach. She asked me, she said, Zoe, this isn't the first time someone's told you to do X, Y, and Z. Why now is it any different? I had no answer for her. I don't know, because you told me to. Well, Anna told me to last week and I didn't do it. So, I mean, this is a mindset thing. This is where we get into the mindset matters. This is where you go from E to P. You have to be real with yourself. What held you back before? And if you're gonna do it now, if you're gonna be part of the 1% that's actually gonna do what we're talking about in these various sessions, I believe it's 20 sessions between now and November, you gotta get real. So let's go ahead and move on, because I'm not gonna go into my soapbox. Someone want to read this for me?
I'll read it for you. To achieve your highest potential, these 6 core competencies must be done consistently and done well. Gary Keller, shift.
Yes. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
With a nice little additive of that. So again, this just goes back to what we were saying. You want to achieve your highest potential, you want to go from E to P. You want to live a limitless life. This is how you start, and you keep mastering this, and you keep working on them every single day. So far, what ahas do you have before we go into the next section?
Any ha-has in the chat?
Good sound like you said,
It's funny.
It's fun.
It's funny.
Maybe not now, but I think just being reminded of mindset on a daily basis
Mhm.
and more than once is so important.
Yeah.
It's too easy to fall off of where you need to be. It's too easy to see the negative, especially if people around you are negative, whatever the
Right.
case is. Like, your mindset has to be so locked in and willing to grow, but only in an upward direction, that no person, no comment, no nothing can pull you from where you are.
Absolutely. And I hear what you're saying, Jack, and I don't disagree. It's also good sometimes to hear the objections and the
Oh,
negative.
absolutely.
For fuel, for one to be like,
Absolutely.
heck, watch me.
Absolutely.
But then also, because sometimes there's a reality that you're not being real about,
Mhm.
that if you're real about it and you figure out how to solve it, you're gonna be that much stronger.
Zakia said lead to agreement timeframe.
Yep. And you know what? That is, for a newer agent, that's probably one of the most deflating realities, is how long do I have to work with these leads that are coming in before I even see some fruit from my labors? How often do you need me to talk to you? You are like the most need, my kids need me less than you do. But the reality is, they need you. They need you to continue adding that value. They need you to continue reminding them that you're here.
It's not everybody.
It's not everybody.
Sometimes you speak to somebody, they're ready, you get it on the market, you spend maybe a total of 2 hours just getting them onto the market. And then there's people that, like I was sharing with you before the class, I met with them initially, their first initial listing appointment was in January. And they just went on the market. Well, it's coming soon. It'll be on the market Thursday, but yeah. 10, what is that, 9 months, 9.5 months?
Yeah, 9.5 months
Mhm.
of nurturing that lead before it turned into
It's like
anything.
having a baby. But I'm not
God,
gonna
no.
know.
And that time,
PTSD.
and that may,
I do love my kid, by the way. I crack jokes about her, but I love her. You can keep her.
Oh.
You wanna switch?
No, they're one of the same. They're cut from the same cloth.
Zakia.
Yeah, Zakia, you're taking Ziva. We've already talked about this. All right, so moving on to the next session, we're gonna take a break for the core competencies, and we're gonna go into another very important reality of our jobs. So, and that is talking about fiduciary versus a functional relationship. Or it can also, a lot of times is transactional. You might hear transactional versus functional. So, when you go, okay, so let's say that you are feeling absolutely awful. You're not sure what's going on with your body. You have been throwing up, your body hurts. No, it's not COVID. Steven's in the room with his mask on right now. He's like also in a corner freaking out. But like you just don't feel good and you don't know what's going on. You're having short breath. So you go to the ER because you're legitimately kind of freaking out. And you have two different types of doctors. You have the one who, they hear you have shortness of breath. They check you, they do an MRI, they do a CAT scan, they see that your heart's fine. Okay, you know, it's just a virus, you're fine. Go home. Best of luck to you. The other one who rules out, okay, you're not having a heart attack, that's great, but you still feel like dog poop. So let's talk about what other symptoms you have and let's figure out what's going on. Let's run some other tests and let's figure out what the problem is. Which doctor would you rather have?
Run some other tests.
Yeah, figure out why I don't feel good.
He's good, good.
I'm great that house doesn't work for me. Figure out one that does. Which person would you rather work with? The person who comes at you from a place of service, the person who is going to get to know you, who's going to be more in tune with what your wants and your needs are versus someone who's just transactional and wants to get to the next patient in the ER.
I gotta tell you a story, but I'm not gonna drag it through everybody on Zoom or whatever, but remind me to tell you a story, because you're gonna cry and laugh.
Dear God. All right. You know, for bonus points, and by the way, can you go to the next slide? For bonus points, can anyone remember what old car acronym stands for?
Obedience,
Obtainable.
loyalty, loyalty.
You just took this test?
Yeah, that's kind of funny. It's,
Old
wait,
car
what is it?
wasn't-
It's obedience.
car wasn't on
loyalty,
my
what's the
test.
D? You know it.
Old car wasn't.
You don't know it, really?
I've
It's
never heard of both.
it's
It's
obedience.
an acronym to remember your
loyalty,
fiduciary
I forget
responsibilities. What are your
D.
fiduciary
Affirmation.
responsibilities?
I've never heard of it.
C is
I'm gonna Google it.
No,
Caring or something?
caring. A is,
Accountability.
ooh, okay, we're gonna do
Wait,
a
wait, wait,
whole
and R
new
is-
course on this. We're stopping now. We're gonna go back to the fiduciary.
Okay.
Stop.
oh God.
You cheated.
I
You cheated.
I did.
I did not.
I've never heard it.
Obedience, loyalty, diligence, or disclosure,
Disclosure.
confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable care and diligence.
No.
Nailed it.
Got it. Nailed it.
So these are the responsibilities that you have to your clients. That's a huge honor. Think about how many people actually approach their careers with this mentality of things, this requirement of them. There's very few professionals who have this degree of relationship with their customers and their clients.
The only other people that I can think of, like thinking of professionals, ones that we work with, attorneys, right? Like they probably have this same level of accountability and fiduciary to their clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, they do. And I'm trying to think if they have necessarily the reasonable care and diligence. Like usually that comes into play, like knowing your lane and stick in it. You are not an inspector, so you can't look at something and say, yeah, that's mold. You test it, unless you tested it, you don't know that that's mold. It might look like mold, not necessarily mold. Oh, there's water in the basement. If there must be a huge issue or it feels damp down here, could be condensation. The basement. You're not a professional in that area. Do not talk about that. I'm not sure if attorneys necessarily have that, but one thing that also sets us apart from a lot of other professionals when it comes to old car and your fiduciary responsibilities is we can actually be prosecuted for not following it. You can get thrown into real estate jail if you do not abide by these. There's a code of ethics. You will pay handsomely for not living up to these fiduciary responsibilities. So just something to kind of be cognizant of. I have this quote from the millionaire. Oh, let the expert. Yes, absolutely, Wendy. Don't just, you know what? I'm not too sure about that. Why don't we get a second opinion? Best answer you can give. I have a quote from the millionaire real estate assistant that I want you guys to think about. A functionary is one who is in a specific task relationship with their clients. They do the job. While a fiduciary is one who not only does the task of the job, they're also in a high trust relationship with their clients and feel total responsibility for the outcome. That is a position of power. That's a position of honor. There's very few people who trust on that high level. And think about it. The clients who you are helping, they are either selling or they are buying one of the largest transactions that they're probably going to ever endure in their life. Now, some of you work in luxury, you might have second homes, and you're like, yeah, well, they have like 10 of these properties. Awesome. Let me be your backup. Let me go ahead and get in on that. But in all seriousness, most of us are not working with people of that magnitude. We're working with people who $500,000 per house is a little bit of a step back, a little bit of a, all right, let me calm down here for a minute. And we need to walk them through that, and they trust us. That's huge. I mean, heck, I didn't even pay that much for college. So think about it. That is just a huge undertaking that we're walking them through. We're partnering with them on. And you should feel honored that they are considering you, and they should realize again why it's important that they work with the right individual. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the Y4C. Well, actually, no, we're going to do that a little bit later. But if we go back to the 6 competencies that we just talked about, again, lead generating, presenting the buyers and sellers to get agreement, show buyers and market the sellers, write and negotiate contracts, coordinate. How do our fiduciary responsibilities align with these 6 competencies? What parallels do you see there?
Many.
Like, way to be specific.
Jacqueline.
Popcorn, Christina.
Friends, no.
One that's really easy, right? So accounting. Accounting is not just managing of money, it's also managing of documents. So when you are doing the transaction coordinating, you have to manage the documents accordingly. Part of your fiduciary responsibility, but also you're not getting paid if you don't. What are some other ones? Do I need to write old, well, problem
Would a
is,
CMA be considered that or no?
what?
A CMA? Or no, not really.
To a degree, I mean, I would say that falls into the line of your obedience and
Yeah.
your loyalty in the sense of, you're gonna help them make the best decision. It's coming from a consultative approach.
Mhm.
Yeah, it looks like there's someone looking to get in.
Yeah, I hit enter. I don't know why it's frozen.
Is there anyone on Zoom who has any ideas? I don't want to just give you the answers, guys. This is meant to be interactive and fun, and
And are you talking specifically about accounting and accountability? Like, is
no,
that-
all of, any of the fiduciary responsibilities that we just went through with Old Car.
Mhm.
How do you see them corresponding and being in relation to the 6 competencies that we discussed
Like
right before we started talking about being a fiduciary? Can we go back to the 6 competencies?
Sure.
So here's one.
There we go. Thank you.
Reasonable care, right?
Yeah.
And diligence. So when you are writing and negotiating contracts, preparing your client for, so I represent sellers. So
Mhm.
from a seller to agent perspective, there's times where we get crazy, ridiculously low offers, or just with contingencies that are out there, right? It's about presenting them effectively and with care, and giving them all of their options,
Mhm.
and being open and honest with them about the situation, right? So you get an offer $100,000 less than what they're asking. it's important that not only are you presenting that offer, if it's a qualified buyer, right? We have a fiduciary to do that, but also provide them with the data to report where the pricing trends are, right? Keep the CMA that you did when you brought it there initially and say, hey, listen, I just wanna bring you back to this document and let you know if you are going to consider accepting this offer, that it's below market value, right? And if you're really motivated and you want to accept it, I support you in that. And if you're not, and you want to wait it out, we can wait it out and we'll just decline this offer. That's completely up to you. However, here's the facts, right? And being prepared with that and being knowledgeable of the market. So.
Yeah.
Through the negotiation process and presenting offers.
Also part of writing an offer is the disclosure forms, right?
Mhm.
A lot of agents just hand you the disclosure forms. They don't go through them to find anything to point out to you that's wrong about the house. But it's your job. That's a material fact that you're supposed to disclose to your client.
Well, New York State's a little different. You could pay, the seller can pay the buyer $500 and they don't have to disclose anything.
Well, okay, but if there's a
But-
residential property disclosure form or a lead-based paint disclosure form.
Yes, those disclosures, New York
Yes.
State disclosures, yeah,
Yes,
fair housing,
and it's
agency.
part of your responsibility to
Mhm.
make sure that your client actually looked them over and did just initial and sign.
Absolutely.
If there's something written in the broker remarks, you know, a material fact about the house, your client might not have access to see what that is. It's your job to make sure that they know. So there's a lot of parallels. We have to get moving because I just realized I'm about at my time. So we're gonna come back to this, but, and we're gonna skip this too because of sake of time. Although there is one thing that Danielle and I were talking about before, and it is again going back to because of our responsibility as a fiduciary and having all of these expectations of us, and the type of relationship that, especially at Keller Williams, we encourage you to have as a consult versus, or a consultant versus a salesperson, is to know when it's not a client you should work with. It is okay sometimes if you are realizing that the client who you might be taking on is going to jeopardize your reputation, is going to potentially get you in real estate jail, like fair housing violations and things like that. So you need to know when it's okay to walk away. There's actually a book that I want to encourage you to look into. It's called The Pumpkin Plan. I thought I had it in my office and I don't, but it is a really great book. I highly encourage you to read it. It's all about knowing your goals within your business and knowing who then your target audience or your target client base is and focusing on that.
What was the name of it again?
Pumpkin Plan. Very seasonal,
Mhm.
all you pumpkin spice folks.
I'm drinking one right now.
All right, other than the fact that most of you didn't know fiduciary, what were your ahas?
In general?
Yeah.
All right, let me.
I've never heard of old car, and if it was something that was like
Crazy.
in the class. I don't remember like most of the stuff from that class,
I
like if I'm
mean,
being completely
I
honest with you,
feel
right?
that, I feel that 100%.
I mean, I'm glad you shared it, because now I do know, and I'm glad that I've always understood what fiduciary was without knowing that acronym, you know what I mean? But it's pretty interesting. So that was kind of an aha, like I didn't even know.
I'll be fully transparent. When I first joined real estate and I wasn't licensed yet, like, yeah, well, you have these fiduciary responsibilities. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means. Let's pretend that I'm stupid for a minute.
Mhm.
So I was really appreciative when they drilled that into my head when I
Mhm.
took my exam. Cause I had no idea.
Nothing in chat so far.
All right, then we're gonna move right along.
Yeah, that's why, so my aha was like that, I thought old car was an industry standard. Like, now I'm finding out that it's not.
It should be.
I
It's
would-
supposed to be.
I would agree,
Not everyone treats it like such.
Did you take the class online?
yeah.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah, I did too.
I probably took the worst possible real estate class.
Well, I did 360training.com. $99. And I had
You're
Groupon.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the next session, or next component.
Next slide or no?
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh,
Wait, what?
wait, you went all the way back. Keep going. There you go. Next one, I think. There we go. Nothing else about your business will have as big of an impact on it as the number of leads that you have. So we were talking again about lead generating being your 20%, being the one thing that you can do that's gonna propel your business. What do you think cultivating leads? Excuse me, I'll just say what? Why do you think cultivating leads is so essential to your business?
It's like your IV. It's literally like your lifeline. If you don't have leads coming in, if you're not taking care of them, you're gonna slow the bags and get empty and empty and then dry out and you're dead. And you have no business.
Has anyone ever heard like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
The what?
The 7 degrees or 7 levels, whatever, of Kevin Bacon, like.
Kevin
There's
Bacon.
like this concept. You just ask who Kevin Bacon
I
is?
thought I said I love Kevin Bacon.
Oh, I was like,
easy.
excuse
Isn't
me?
it? I thought it was like 6 degrees of separation, no?
Well, that's a whole nother thing.
Oh, okay.
But there's like the 7 levels or 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So like, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows Kevin Bacon. And like in 7 levels, you can find your connection to Kevin Bacon or anyone in this world because we're so connected. Yeah, I found out that I know people who like, not that, we're not getting into it. I know people who like physically work alongside people who have worked in the White House or who physically know Olympians. Actually, I have a direct connection to an Olympian. Like, it's crazy.
My
What's their sport?
sister's boss is like BFFFFFs with
Whoa, that's a lot of apps.
like really, really good friends with Khloe Kardashian's best friend, Manika or whatever. I have no idea.
I have never got into the Kardashians. I don't even know which one Khloe is.
You're
But
not
that's-
missing much. You're not missing much.
But my point
They're
being
called
is,
We'll answer.
you're right, and that it is exactly what funnels and it fuels your business,
Mm.
but it also is what sustains your business, because how you treat your clients is how you're going to continue. You don't know who they know. You don't know who your database knows. You don't know how many people they can refer you out. So if you treat them well, if you encourage and you program in their mind, hey, who do you know?
That's like my one client is a police officer, and now all of my pipeline is police officers.
Yeah.
And they're great people to know because they know everybody.
Not to mention they can get me out of a speeding ticket.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Him and Bruce done. Bruce is the reason why I don't have suspended license.
I feel like this is recorded, right? We should watch this out.
Yes, it is recorded.
All right, but my point being is, yes, your database and your lead generation is incredibly important because not just of the business that it can give you, but for the long-term business that it can give you. And all of this and all of Ignite is not about the short term, it's about the long game. It's about the long game. But with lead generation, and I can completely contest to this, especially with like our smart plans and such that we can have set in place with Command, it's really easy to set it and forget it. But Command can't make those phone calls for you. And it can't send out those handwritten notes saying happy birthday. There's certain things that a computer can't do. There's certain reasons why Zillow will never be able to replace a realtor, and it's because they can't add the personal touch. But it comes down to accountability, folks. So that's where, Abraham, you had asked about role playing. I want to encourage you guys to find an accountability partner in this process. There's some of you who've been here every session. I know we're going to talk about 2 sessions, but there's some of you who've obviously been committed. You're here for every session so far. Online too. You don't have to be in the same room. But you need to find someone that you can talk to, that you can role play with, Abraham. That you can share, hey, these are the things I want to accomplish. And we're actually going to have a success tracker, that system tracker that we're going to have for you. And I want you to report that to somebody. I'm not going to assign you guys accountability partners. I'm not your teacher in that regard. I'm not gonna be your mom. But I really encourage you to do it. And so here's another reason, and Zakia, I know that you're on here, so I'm gonna pick on you.
Yep.
How easy is it to fall off the working out bandwagon if you don't have anyone, if you don't have anyone who knows that you're gonna work out every single day for 30 days straight?
Oh, no.
How easy is it? It's very easy, yeah. So I did a competition with my agents back in Cleveland where we did a marathon competition. All of us in the course of a month needed to run the equivalent of a marathon. If anyone in our team was not running their miles, the rest of the team had to make up their mileage.
Oh my God.
That is accountability. Because you had to report and you had to tell someone else like, hey, guess what? You have to go run an extra 6 miles this week because I suck. So that is where your accountability partner, that's the type of accountability you should have with your accountability partner for Ignite. And not just in Ignite. I have an accountability partner back in Cleveland who I still talk to. She's in director of operations, I'm in a different role, but we still talk to each other about things that we're trying to accomplish, and we check in with one another. It's something that should be a long-term relationship. If you are interested in what that type of, like the types of questions you should be going through and the type of, I guess the structure of that relationship, there is a blueprint for that in the participation guide under this session. So let me know if you don't have the participation guide, especially those on Zillow, go ahead and say something in the chat and Stephen or myself will send you that participation guide so you have all that material.
I'll just post it right now.
Perfect, that's even better. Way to take the initiative. One thing that is gonna come up when you are working with your accountability partner, and it better come up, is what are your goals? So if you don't know what your business goals are, then please go ahead and make sure that you make a note to start writing that down, some of your ideas, your big whys, and focus on 2022 first. And we'll be actually having a little shameless plug. We're gonna be having a few different things to help you with your goals. I didn't see what that last comment was.
It's me. It's
Oh,
just
it's
saying
you.
like,
Okay.
like scroll.
Sorry.
through on it. It's all good.
But we're gonna be having some business planning clinics coming up at the end of October. October 24th, we're gonna have a session here in Middletown. On October 25th, there's gonna be one in New City. I believe the team leaders for Oneida and Rockland? No.
Kingston.
Kingston, sorry, Rita, don't be mad at me. Are gonna be working on putting together their business clinics, and then we're also gonna have one on Zoom on November 10th. So those are some different business planning clinics that we're gonna have for you to help start establishing your business goals for 2023. And then come join me for our team meeting, my Middletown folks and Sullivan County folks, because I have a fun little thing that we're gonna be doing for our market center too, kind of in the same area. But if we can go on to the next slide. Oh,
Next one.
yes. Keep going.
Alright.
I covered all this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being proficient all of a sudden. So this is the success system tracker that I was talking to you guys about. So starting today, I want you guys to be tracking how many conversations you're having, not how many calls, how many conversations. How many people did you actually get on the
That's
phone
it.
with?
Why did you?
You need to be, you're shooting for 10 people added to your database every single day. You're shooting for 10 handwritten notes. Now, these other two components, we're gonna be diving into those to another session, but just know that this is the daily success tracker that through Ignite, we want you to be shooting for. If you've ever done a daily 10-4, these first 3 should look real familiar to you. And what is the importance of a handwritten note versus a text?
Personal.
I'm gonna throw myself under the bus right now. If some of you guys in my market center right now are like, "Ha, caught you." The text messages I've been sending about the 10-year anniversary. I'm sorry, I copy and pasted it. It wasn't personal. at all. I'm just trying to remind you that we have this thing going on next week. It would have been a lot better had I been more proficient and more proactive and sent you guys a personal invite that showed up at your home address saying, hey, you're invited. But again, I didn't have the accountability. Do better, be better.
Well, that's it.
Sound
Like,
like
no.
Voldemort.
But no, but we all can, and I think that's like something to pull out of everything, you know, is do better. Know that you need to do better and figure out how you're gonna do that. Abraham wants to do scripts, okay, find somebody and do it.
Yeah.
We all know now, whoever, how many, 24 people there, 5 people in the room, we know you wanna do it.
Yep.
So it's, you said Keller Williams is a family and it is. If you hear somebody say something and then you see them doing the complete opposite, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you have with them. I have respect for somebody who calls me out on my stuff any day of the week.
Yeah.
Whether I'm friends with them, close with them or not.
You know what the biggest difference is between some of our, a newer agent or a more green agent versus someone who's been in the business a long time? I had a meeting with one of my top producing agents, came in, sat down, I asked him about his goals, literally had his pulse on every one of the 6 competencies. Well, geez, what do you need me for? What am I supposed to coach you on? You got a handle on this. But it wasn't so much of the fact that he knew that his business was down, or he knew exactly which lead generating tools were bringing him the highest ROI and what was worthwhile and what wasn't, or even that he was cognizant of how much time he was spending on lead generating and going on appointments and his conversion rates. It was that he knew that that still wasn't enough to get to the goals that he wanted, and already had in place, because he knew his numbers, what he needed to do to get where he wanted to be. That's the economic model, folks, and the MREA. Most agents won't get that granular. They won't track and measure. They won't look at their conversion rates. They won't know how much they're spending on the various lead generation tools, their Zillow leads, and then they're really upset when they're out all this money and they haven't done any business. So that is the numbers, and the tracking is incredibly important, and it starts with things like this. I know I have 5 minutes and I want to give time for ahas. I'm just gonna quickly go through the other material that I was supposed to cover and make
Do
sure
you want
there's
me- do you want me to hit next?
yeah.
Oh, you kind of just talked about that.
Yeah,
All right, how about this?
Ford. Has anyone heard this acronym before?
Yes.
Okay.
Four.
So Ford is, if you're newer or trying to figure out how to even go about some of these conversations and make it a little bit more of a care call, as I believe Minnie pointed out, versus a cold call. This is just kind of a general idea of some ways to incorporate less of a sales and more of a consultant approach. Ask them about their family, ask them about their occupation, ask them about their hobbies. And so Fode doesn't sound as good, recreation sounds better. So recreation or hobbies, and then ask them about their dreams. And what I will ask you not to do is make it an interview. Hey, how's your family doing? Oh, really? How's your job? Are you excelling? No one likes to be grilled. So make it a two-way conversation. They share some information with you, you share some information with them, make it a conversation, making it, and I will tell you, this is actually a skill. When you evaluate how much information they're giving you, you should reciprocate with a similar amount of information. So if they tell you, oh, my family's great, how's yours? Fine. That's the end of the conversation. All right, well, great talking to you, great catching up. So there's a whole script around Ford and how to use it accordingly. Again, it is in your participation packet. But with your accountability partners, I really hope that you're taking advantage of it. Again, I know at least in the Middletown office, we are doing the power hours. So if you want to role play, if you want to script practice, that is a great time for you to come in, because we have agents here who we know it's important to our business. We're happy to script and role play with you. So that's a great time to do it and make sure that you actually are getting it into your schedules. More on board.
Okay, I'll just sit next.
Yeah. Raise of hands, more so for my own knowledge as a TL. Does everyone know how to add someone to your database in command?
Yeah.
You all
I
better.
don't, my PC coach never.
You HBU guys, you
Rebecca's
better.
walking by the room, guys. RK Money is walking by. That's why Jacqueline's getting in trouble.
Okay, my bad. All right, sorry.
So, but anyone on chat, if you don't know, please let me know, because I want to make sure that we get you hooked up with someone who can help you how to use command, and just leverage your business. We already talked about that. I'm running out of time. All right, I think that's really about it. So, again, I'm gonna, Rita is doing the next session. And I'm gonna ask her to call y'all out. I took note of who's here. I'm gonna let her know who's here.
Here.
No, it's gonna be held in the Kingston office. We're gonna do a watch party in our market center. So you can still, if you're from the Middletown, Sullivan area and you wanna come into our market center, we're gonna have a watch party. It's gonna, Rebecca or myself will be facilitating it. But Rita is gonna be hosting that. I'm gonna ask her to call you out and say, hey, where are you at with your success tracker? How you been doing with that? Because accountability is important. So other than that, I'm gonna digress. What ahas, what questions, what challenges are y'all facing?
Any ahas or comments? And now we wait.
I mean, I'll jump in again. I mean,
Jump on in.
I think a big thing for me, the first session and this session goes back to the accountability. So it's, I mean, until you have that and.
Yeah, that's what I was laughing about.
Until you can, I guess, accept being held accountable, because I think there's a level of acceptance that you need to have to understand, like, when people first started holding me accountable in this business, I got pissed off.
It's uncomfortable.
Because you feel like dumb. So it's easier to get pissed and pretend it's like their fault or something, when you really just, it's a reality check of you're just not getting your stuff done. And when you can come to terms with being able to take constructive criticism and just accept that you need an outside eye, then that right there is one level of eat of meat, where you're able to break through of reaching new lengths, because you can be held accountable.
I mean, again, because you can have reasons or you can have results.
Right.
Jay asked for examples of handwritten notes, and Zakia said, have me thinking about my accountability partner.
For working out, Zakia, or for, no, she's got plenty of accountability partners. It looks like she's actually like a coach.
Yeah, I saw you,
Yeah,
I saw you on Facebook,
So Zakia,
Zakia.
I'm gonna shameless plug her real quick. She works at the Y and she just started teaching classes. And from what I see, she's kicking some ass. So,
Yeah.
We're.
But kicking butt.
Kicking
Thank
butt.
you.
I forget we're recording, we're honestly, my bad.
So. I wrote a thank you note for an agent. Yeah, it absolutely does. So that is a great point, Wendy. So a great example of some handwritten notes. Whenever I would close on a house, I would write, actually, well, depends on what side of the transaction I was on. Bye, Eugenio. Is I would write probably 4 handwritten notes. I would write one to my client, obviously, thanking them for trusting me with their business, and remind them again, I would always put in here, referrals are the lifeblood of my business. If you know anyone who is looking to sell, a friend, I would really appreciate if you could pass my name, or even better yet, give me their information. I'd be happy to reach out. So that is always something that I would do. I would write a thank you note to the co-broke agent, whoever had the other side, because especially here at Keller Williams, we have profit share. You can build your downline. That is one easy way to build your downline, is thank them for their professionalism, because not all real estate agents are created equal. And you have the opportunity to bring them in to our little club and drink the Kool-Aid, as some people will say. And
Oh, there's Kool-Aid already.
it's great Kool-Aid.
The best.
Best Kool-Aid there's ever been. But you have a chance to help them be in a community with like-minded individuals. And if they're an agent who's maybe not quite where they need to be, you have the opportunity to show them of all the different training opportunities, all the different support that Keller Williams provides versus a lot of other brokerages. So always, I encourage you to write a thank you note to your co-brokes. And then any of your affiliated partners who are also part of the transaction, so Bruce Dunn, any of your home inspectors who you use on a regular basis, your lending partners, doing a thank you to them as well. I highly encourage that. But other examples are, you know, if you hear that their kid went off to college or they're graduating high school, like, hey, so congratulations, you're an empty nester, hope you enjoyed the silence, as Rebecca usually says to people whose kids go off to school. You know, things like that, make it fun, but own it. It has to sound like you. So I can't give you a script per se, because it's gotta be genuine.
I like the handwritten notes after closing.
Yeah. That was always part of our process, a checklist. Yep. Any other questions before we let you guys go and start your success tracking?
If you guys don't close 10 deals by next Monday, you can't join Ignite. I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Steven,
If someone.
No, he's gone.
All
all right. Hey, one last request that I have for you guys. If you could go on the kweval.com and just leave a review of today's session. Be gentle. This is my very first time ever teaching
Be
these guys.
Be gentle.
So please, I would really appreciate if you could tell me how I did, so I can just continue to get better. Be my accountability partner.
Email.com.
I don't know what Steven is doing here right now.
He's gonna show you.
No, Rebecca.
Oh, no, you have your thingy. I stopped sharing the screen. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
I gotta get the link. Hold on.
And worst case scenario, if you have to hop off, we'll email it out as well.
Do we have that?
Wendy, we're gonna be sending the eval link here. If we can't get it into the chat, we will make sure that we email it out to everyone who participated.
Do we have everybody's?
Going out.
It's
So you're
going
still
out
here.
right now.
Give it a clicky.
And then.
Well,
you're not-
it'll
she's
save
not
in the
gonna be
chat
on
when
there, so
they
have to put her
close it.
in.
Good job, Steven. Thanks, Wendy. It was really hard. My fingers are stretched out, you know?
Steven, tell them she's not gonna be under instructor name.
Oh, yes, you'll have to, you will not gonna find my name, Zoey Breese, under instructor. You're gonna have to type it in Zoey space Breese, Breese. Thank you, Steven.
Gosh.
You just earned your paycheck.
Blank.
All right.
What was your last name? How do you spell
Breese.
It's a Breeze $EESE.
Z money.
Z
That was
money.
actually, Z Breezy was my nickname
Z
from when I
Breezy?
was a headhunter.
it? Okay.
My boss is like, Z Breezy.
You do have a
Anytime
cool
with
ass
her.
name though.
Oh, thanks.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's better
It's a
than Ann and Bob.
Breeze. That's recorded. We totally discussed that.
Perfect.
All
You
right.
got me in my natural essence. This is me, folks. Sorry. All right.
No,
Thank you
sorry.
guys. Have a great